Hi, my name's Lou Musante, and I just got off a really fun podcast with Michael Couch and Richard Citron, the Leadership Café. And, a couple of things we really talked about that might grab your attention to want to learn more is this concept of during COVID, you had to learn to adapt or die, and when you think about it, I think one of the ways we've seen people adapt is who's more important, your employees, your customers. Well, maybe pre-COVID, it was customers, but I think with the great resignation, the great reassessment, you realize how important your employees are. And think about what COVID has done to this remote work, isolation of people. If you're in a plant community, isolated at night on a shift, you need to understand the impact of the connections they have or don't have with the mothership. It falls under this concept of loneliness, but it's really about maintaining quality connections with the people I'm working with. So if you're interested, tune into the Leadership Cafe.
Well, thank you for joining us on another edition of the Leadership Cafe, where we talk with extraordinary people leading remarkable businesses. And we're your hosts. I'm Michael Couch.
And I'm Richard Citron, and today we are so excited to have Lou Musante on with us. Lou is a friend that we've known for many years. Interesting, I think Lou is the first guest that we're having who is a serial entrepreneur. Lou has started 4 businesses, not counting the business he started when he was 9 years old, when he would hunt for night crawlers, for worms for fishermen and fisherwomen probably. So we're really excited, Lou, to have you join us to talk about leadership and entrepreneurship. I know you're an adjunct professor at Carnegie Mellon right now, working in the corporate startup lab as well. So a lot of great things. We're very interested in having you share with us. Lou Musante, thanks for joining us today on the Leadership Cafe.
Thank you for having me.
Lou, we always kind of like to start off a little bit by hearing, having you describe a little bit about your leadership journey. What have been kind of the important hallmarks for you, and what have you learned along the way, starting 4 businesses and now mentoring and teaching younger people in doing that, as well as continuing to grow your own new businesses?
Yeah, leadership is new to me. As I grew up, I had a lot of change in my life, a lot of adaptability. I went to 4 different elementary schools and 3 different high schools. You sort of learn it's sort of adapt or die. And I think that served me well as I've grown more as an entrepreneur than a leader. And it's really, and I'm an older person, through COVID, I think I emerged from thinking I was a leader, but really emerged from being a manager to a leader and realizing that you have a great team behind you. They need a little more autonomy. And so here's where we are.
Yeah. Interesting most, that transition from manager to leader. What a great recognition about people needing more autonomy. Means you get to work less and get more things done.
That was the plan, yes.
Yeah, that was a similar observation that we had from the CEO of a global corporation in a previous podcast, that was one of the things that he thought that the pandemic did for him, is he realized that he trust his people, let him go, with the right start, and he didn't have to be there. You didn't have to be controlling folks, and seeing them breathing and in the office. That's actually more could get done, more innovation could occur. So it sounds like that's the same experience you had, huh?
It is, and I have to say, as I've looked at virtual leadership and remote over a couple decades, we've had a virtual company since 1999, and you realize it's an issue of trust. If we're remote, do we trust what our people are doing? Are they going to do better? In my case, it was really more about realizing that employees come first. Who's more important, your employees or your customers? When I talk to most C-suite folks, it's, well, Lou, you don't understand. If we didn't have customers, we wouldn't have employees. Well, I think I saw it differently, and it became so apparent to me as we went into COVID, it's like, we're not, I'm a face-to-face person, old school, and we just didn't have that. And so I think we learned that it's about the people on the call, and let's take some time and how you doing today? And I think as we emerged, we realized that these 60-minute meetings who became 45 minutes, so you could go from meeting to meeting, I looked at least a third of the time was how you doing? What are you doing? Talk to me. And that just served us so well. And as I saw people taking more and more leadership roles, I said, I can do more if I move from management. So we actually reorganized the company around 7 teams. And these teams each have a leader. And now the company's had significant growth over that period. And I think it's because I had more time to be a rainmaker and bring in other people to help sell the company.
Mm. So I noticed that in one of the materials I was looking at about your background, that you describe yourself as an infopreneur. Can you say a bit more about that, and what the heck's an infopreneur?
Well, it's almost like, are you selling the features or the benefits? My career was, undergrad chemistry, grad school, got paid to go to grad school, and just dropped out of a PhD program. So didn't have a master's, had all these credits for more than a master's. What am I going to do? And I ended up with a program in information science. And I realized that this was in 77, 78, where if you had this thing called little portable computer, you could help people find information. They'd pay for that. So it moved from having a research mindset to know it's not about the research, it's about the information you could sell. So an infopreneur is somebody who sells information. So we're selling the insights and what we did, not the boring process of research, which most executives don't want to hear about.
Yeah. So I'm excited to hear what your new ventures are these days. So what information are you selling now, and what kind of key problems are you looking to solve?
I think what we're selling now, and I like that, is really information on somebody's internal or external customers. We're very focused on employee retention in large global, both manufacturing companies and large global IT companies, and helping them understand who's connected and not connected to the brand or the company is huge. And you think about Gallup, which we all know and I respect. They were so excited over COVID that global employee engagement moved from 35% to 37%. You're like, wow, let's do the reverse math. 2 out of 3 people aren't engaged, And I think as you start to help understand connectedness to the brand, it really opens a lot of leaders' eyes. Where we really want to go when we grow up is moving from looking at employee engagement to something that is near and dear to our purpose and art, which is patients and caregivers. How do we help them feel connected and that there's somebody there? Because it's such a scary journey, especially in some of the conditions we work in, like cancer and COPD. It's who are you connected to? Do you have a loved one?
Mm-hmm. Do you find that I don't know that the engagement data applies to patients as well, that a third of the patients are highly engaged in their care and 2/3 are, I don't know, maybe reliant on the doctor to give them the answer, or even worse. Is there any research around that at all, or you haven't seen that?
I think there's a lot of research, and it came out of just sort of a general rule of thumb. Consumers, patients, customers, family members. 1/3 are engaged. 1/3 you're never going to get to, but there's that 1/3 in the middle. It debates. It could be 30, 40, 20. It varies, but there's that group in the middle that can have impact on. So sometimes you need to say, I'm not going to help you because you're going to get there. You're going to be compliant if you're a patient. And on the other hand, no matter what I do, no matter what information I'm selling, you're not buying. So it's that group in the middle that you're trying to impact. And when you look at the cost of engagement of employee or a cost of the engagement of a patient, I ask my customers, what would 1% increase in employee engagement do for you? What would 1% increase in the patient and compliance do? And it's interesting that the healthcare people can answer that much easier than the corporate community can on a 1% bump in engagement.
I'm very intrigued by your work in that area, mostly because of what we're learning about networks in general. And we worked with a client, a colleague and others, sort of tracking that through the pandemic. And initially, that point you made, that productivity increase when we went hybrid, we went virtual, but it died off quickly. And so research out of the Amazon Web Services is because networks fell apart. That even close in team networks fell apart versus connections with other teams, which were even worse. So this idea of connectedness, we're also finding that it's leaders with good networks are much more successful than those who do not have good networks. So it seems to me that's that idea of building networks, the connectedness is core to several areas here. And then you're thinking about it from the employee standpoint and from the patient standpoint.
Yes, think back, and I think we all know the Gallup Q12. And I remember, I'll be honest, when I first learned about that a couple of decades ago, what's up with this question? Do you have a best friend at work? Well, it turns out that's one of the best predictors of employee retention. So when you extrapolate that to quality connections,
yes,
and what we see, the disconnect is the root causes is forms of loneliness. And what's interesting, that's when you move from, it doesn't matter if it's work environment or the home environment, they are really synergistic. If you're not connected at work, you're not connected at home, probably. If you're not connected at home, you're probably not connected at work. And so I think you're spot on, Michael, with the corporate networks. There's a group at Carnegie Mellon that really focuses on a guy named David Crackhart,
yes,
that really starts to look at the connections between people. It's interesting, there's a few ways to look at it. You have all this corporate network data, IT data. You got some privacy challenges there, but you can start to look at who's connected, who isn't, where there are bridges, where there are barriers. And then when you go below the team level, it's about which of the employees feel like they're connected to work. And that's where I come back to the Gallup. 2 out of 3 don't feel that way.
Yeah.
And you don't, our work would indicate, not a lot of data, but you don't have to do a lot to start creating those connections. But what leader is going to take what used to be an hour meeting back to back to 45 minutes so I can have a bio break, to taking those 45 minutes and saying 15 minutes to bullshit, to talk about how you doing today? Well,
yeah.
We don't have time to do that, but I'll tell you what, that's where the correlations are with connectedness. And does somebody care about me?
Yeah. Interestingly, I just read, there's a great book called Networks and the Knowledge Economy. And there are 4 chapters in here from David Crackhart. And I was just reading one last night. So I think it's some powerful new information. And I'm glad to see you're in the middle of that, particularly the idea around loneliness. We saw that increase during the pandemic. So how can we better address that? Any guidance for leaders around that topic?
Geez, I think you have to sit back and think about that question I use to screen customers when I'm out making the rain. Who's more important? Your employees or your customers? And I tell you what, it's the Pareto principle, and employees don't win. And I don't mean these are CEOs that don't care. I think it's perspective. And I don't know if it's the great resignation, the great reassessment, but as we've tried to commercialize these concepts around loneliness and connectedness, it's really trying to segment who's tuned in, who cares. They all have the problem, but I can't help you realize the problem. If you know you have a problem and it's about your employees, then I think we can help. And the interesting thing is the medicines, the interventions aren't that
No.
complicated. It's, go back to that 45-minute meeting. Look, what's more important? Let's just take 15 minutes. And it's about role modeling. You know, when I think about culture change, I go back to some McKinsey stuff 20 years ago. A leader has 4 levers to change culture. And what is it? It's training and incentives. If we want more innovation, we're going to give them an innovation bonus. And we're going to train them on innovation. The bottom line is it's about role modeling and communication.
Right.
Are you walking the talk? And I heard a former CEO who was a CEO of both Chase and JP Morgan say, you know, I think I'm crazy because when I'm on the circuit, I'm beating the drum. I'm saying the same thing every time. But he goes, I realize it's clarity, communication, and driving it in. It's not complicated, you know. It's not. It's about the people, stupid. It's about the people.
You know, Lou, as I think about your leadership, one of the things that strikes me in hearing this conversation is that you have been and continue to be a thought leader. You know, you're finding data, you're finding information. Well, you're taking the data and you're turning it into information. What have you found to be the best strategies in terms of being a thought leader to influencing these decision makers within organizations? Because probably just presenting the data, even to a CFO, may not be enough. And I'm noticing the amazing graphic behind you, storyboard behind you. I'm seeing words like optimism and behaviors and happiness and charity and all of these, you know, amazing qualitative aspects. You know, I often think, I was talking to somebody yesterday who tends to be very data driven in her presentations. And I said, you know, what I'd like to suggest is you get some stories that you share and don't just present the data. What have you found as a thought leader is the best way for you to get your messages across to those decision makers?
It took me a long time to realize it's not the data. I'm a data guy, you know. They don't want the data. And if you're at the right level, they assume you have the data. You don't need to tell me about it. And it's really about the stories. And it's about the stories of people who've been down this road. You know, it's tell me about disconnection and employee X, or tell me about this patient and what's that like? They don't even have a loved one caring for them. So, you know, stories are hot. They've been hot. If you think about oral history, it's really about passing on the story. And I found a couple good stories that pique the emotions. So, you know, most of our customers who want a PowerPoint from us versus a report, they want words and slides. To me, the best PowerPoints have pictures and 2 or 3 words, and that's it. And you try to evoke the emotion to get somebody to buy into the story. So you're spot on with stories.
Yeah.
Right. So the one of the intriguing things that we've been doing through the podcast is everybody's been talking about, all right, this is what the pandemic did to me. And here's research on the impact of the pandemic. And you've already mentioned some things, but yeah, the other question that we've been asking is, you know, what has the pandemic done for you? What comes to mind if we would ask you that question?
I think what the pandemic's done for me, as I mentioned, my transition is still in progress, but I do know I'm moving from being a manager to a leader. I'm pretty happy about it, you know, because 5 years ago, well, yeah, I'm running the show, you know, but it's, to me, what I've learned is it's about the people, it's about motivation. And, you know, I mainly, our team, which is core of 5, then 10 more and 15 more, it's about N equals 30. Okay, permanent part-time people, all independent contractors. The average person's been with us 15 or 16 years. So I'm managing or leading 4 generations of people. And you step back and say, they're all knowledge workers, they're all over the maps. And I go back to some of the work of Daniel Pink. How do you motivate knowledge workers? AMP, autonomy, mastery, purpose. And I think you both know, we brought Daniel Pink into the Pittsburgh market a couple times, and he says he doesn't believe in assessments, but we created an assessment from his AMP model, and we've run it several times, mainly in R&D environments, very knowledge intensive. And we've always found that employees resonate with all three, but one pops. And I've tried to do that with our individual core 10 folks to understand what rings your bell. Autonomy, mastery, purpose, and let's do it. The interesting thing is, as we've transitioned from being consultants, which we know how much people like, to really working on the patient engagement end, that it's really about purpose. We have purpose. The company has purpose, and people have been attracted to that. So it's understanding, beside purpose, autonomy, mastery, what rings your bell. And I think as I've learned to do that, that's what helped me be comfortable not being a micromanager and being able to delegate, to say, one, you're smarter than me, you're better at that than me, let me give you the autonomy to do it. Oh, you want money to master that? We'll pump money into employee development. So it's really been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, the CEO that we interviewed recently talked about the multiplicity of voices and how critical that is to innovation. And so the idea, if you allow for the autonomy, you give people the voice and you listen to that, a core driver of innovation. Do you see the same thing?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's, I think in 1994, we got the service mark on the term customer listening. We never got the term, the service mark on the term employee listening, but that's really what's helped me a lot, because even though my wife has pointed out to me many times, you may have the service mark on the term listening, customer listening, but you don't listen to your real customers that much. And I take that to heart, and I think I've grown exponentially in the past 18 months because of COVID.
Excellent. Well, always fascinating, Lou, talking with you. We could probably go on and on all weekend here, but if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about Echo and Echo Strategies, Echo Healthcare, what's the best way for them to do that?
I think our LinkedIn profile on Echo Strategies, or you could email me at Musante at Echo, ECHO strategies.biz, B-I-Z.
Right. Excellent. Well, we thank you for spending the time with us this afternoon here in Pittsburgh. And I'm sure you have a copy, but as a thank you, we'll be sending a copy of Strategy-Driven Leadership that Richard and I will sign for you. This podcast will be published all over the place, so you can watch it on Richard and I's website, as well as wherever you enjoy your podcasts. We'll be releasing episodes very regularly, so keep your eyes out open for those. We also want to make sure we thank our producer, director extraordinaire, Chad Barr from the Chad Barr Group, who helps us make sure that we can, us old folks can handle this technology here. But we want to thank everybody for joining us on the Leadership Cafe. I'm Michael Couch.
And I'm Richard Citron. We'll look forward to seeing you at the next Leadership Cafe. And Lou, thanks so much for joining us.